So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paramacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Chandanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai. Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidway the Gadadha Srila Siddhi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan ki jai, Machuram ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Munamai ki jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi ki jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Jani Namaste Shishimali Paschacha Deja Tarani. So we're reading from Bhagavatam. Who knows where? Who has the Bhagavatam? I don't have it memorized yet. So just give me a careful. So where are you reading from? 12? 12. Okay, we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 16th chapter, text 12. This is about King Chitraketu meets the Lord. Wow. Very important chapter. Okay, there's no purports for a few texts here. Anyway. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Do you have it written somewhere? No. Can the devotees repeat it? No, they don't have it written. No.
Sorry, not now.
Okay.
Or tomorrow we can.
Does anyone have devices where they have the Bhagavatam? No.
Yes.
Then you can repeat after me. It's, again, it's 6, 16, 12. 6, 16, 12 on your mobile phones, and those who were fortunate to have the Bhagavatam on your mobile phones can repeat. Shri Badarayane Ruvacha. I can just do word by words. Iti Udirya Gato Jivo Yatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Amuchu Shukam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam Jivadarayani Ruvacha Ichudirya Gato Jivo Gatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam Shivadarayani Ruvacha Ityudirya Gato Jivo Yatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam Srivadrayani Ruvacha Ityudirya Gato Jivo Jatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam. Okay, anyone? Okay, ladies. All right. Shri Badrayani Uvacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Iti, in this way, Udirya, speaking, Gata, went, Jiva, the living entity, who had appeared as the son of Maharaja Chitraketu. Jataya, the relatives and family members. Tasha, of him. Te, they. Tada, at that time. Vismita, being astonished. Wamuchu, gave up. Shokam, lamentation. Chitva, cutting off. Atmasneha, of affection due to a relationship. Shrinkalam, the iron shackles. The translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued. No, we'll do it responsibly in a second. When the conditioned soul, Jiva, in the form of Maharaj Chitraketu's son, had spoken in this way, and then left, Chitraketu and the other relatives of the dead son were all astonished. Thus they cut off the shackles of their affection, which was due to their relationship with him, and gave up their lamentations. You can repeat. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued. When the conditioned soul Jiva,
when the conditions so easily come,
in the form of Maharaj Chitraketu's son,
in the form of Maharaj Chitraketu's son,
had spoken in this way,
had spoken in this way,
and then left.
and then left.
Chitraketu and the other relatives of the dead son
Chitraketu and the other relatives of the dead son
were all astonished.
were all astonished.
Thus they cut off all the shackles
Thus they cut off all the shackles
of their affection,
of their affection,
which was due
which was due
to their relationship with him,
to their relationship with him,
and gave up their lamentation.
and gave up their lamentation.
And so, because I guess some of you are joining us for the first time, I guess I'll comment on this verse rather than go ahead, if that's all right. So, again, the verse, Sri Badarani Vaksha, Ityudiriya Gato Jiva Gyataya Statsate Tadha, Visvata Boguchu Om Chokam, Titwa Ma Sneha, Shrinkalam, Som Gana, Simabanda Shah. Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmanitam Tasmai Shikarve Namaha. So this is the famous story of Chitraketu. And I want to explain it in terms of fate, astrology, what's predicted for you, so we can all understand this underlying message of this particular part of the story. So, all of us, of course, if we're not Krishna conscious, we have karma. And we're meant to have certain things in this lifetime. And we're meant not to have certain things in this lifetime based upon that karma. And if you're interested, you consult your horoscope, your astrology, and see, what you're meant to have and what you're not meant to have. But many of us, we want to have things that we're not meant to have. And even Krishna conscious people sometimes want to have things they're not meant to have, not realizing that Krishna says that everybody, Ishava Shamidam Sabram Yadkancha Jagajam Jagatina Jagtena Punjana Magrata Krishna Svijana. Everyone has a quota. A quota means Krishna has given you what you need. And Krishna has given you what you're supposed to have, whether it's through the law of karma or whether it's Krishna directly in the case of a devotee. And so we find that if we try to endeavor for things we're not supposed to have, it doesn't work. Not only doesn't it work, we get frustrated, and hopefully we become detached. So that's the story right here. Chitraketu. Okay, go back a little bit. Chitraketu really wanted to have a son. He's king. And the reason they want to have a son, oh, you have a son too. That's nice. The reason he wanted to have a son is because kings really should have a son. And the reason kings should really have a son is because of this principle, what's called primogeniture, which means that your eldest son takes over the kingdom, if he's qualified. If he's not qualified, it goes to number 2. Let's give an example of that. In the case of, let us say, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Dhritarashtra was not qualified because he was blind. And kings at that time, in order to be kings, they had to fight in the battlefields. And you can't really fight in the battlefield too well if you can't see your enemies. Makes sense. And so, therefore, it was determined that Pandu, the younger son, was going to become the king. Of course, eventually that didn't work out when Pandu died prematurely, but that's a different story. So here's Chitraketu. King Chitraketu, he really wants to have a son. And he's not facing fate. He doesn't understand that fate doesn't want him to have a son. So what happens is he keeps trying by marrying different wives. He's thinking, it's the wife's fault. So he goes, 1 wife, 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives. I can't reach the end of it because it's 10 million. What's the population of Finland?
5.5.
So roughly double the population of Finland. Don't try that at home. Actually, one's meant to have 1 wife. Like Lord Ramchandra is the perfect example because, what was it? Eka Patni Vrata. 1 wife, 1 arrow, 1 word. That's Lord Ramchandra. Now you look at Krishna and say, what about Krishna? 16,108. It wasn't as many as Chitraketu, but what about Krishna? Well, Krishna sets a really bad example for us. We were just talking about this the other day in class. That Krishna in the Gita, what does he say? Yadyada charati shreshtas tatati vetaro janaha. He says that great people set an example and everybody follows. But Krishna doesn't follow that injunction himself. You know, dancing with other people's wives in the middle of the night? Don't do that. 16,000. Of course, you can marry 16,108 wives if you like. If each and every one has a house, has a palace, has their own car, right? And you can divide yourself up to be with each and every one of them simultaneously. But if you can't divide yourself up even once, you stick with 1 wife. And 1 husband too. Okay. So anyway, so Chitraketu, he doesn't realize 10 million wives. Can you imagine? Whew, really endeavored. I mean, just like even 2 or 3. And actually, you see in practically every case in the Mahabharata where people had more than 1 wife, there was trouble. Actually, it's an interesting Sanskrit word. Sapatni means, you know, with wives or many wives. And sapatnya means with one's enemy. Did you know that? You think about play on words in Sanskrit. Isn't it? Think about it. So, but he didn't understand his fate. Now, along comes Angira Rishi. So you have Angira Rishi. And he pays a visit to Chitraketu. And he sees Chitraketu lamenting and lamenting and lamenting. And, you know, there's some nice words in the beginning. You know, how you doing, Prabhu? I'm doing fine. Take some prasadam. But after that, he said, what's the problem, Chitraketu? And Chitraketu says, you know, I don't have a son. And basically, Angira is telling him, you're not supposed to have a son. It's not there in the stars. But he says, I really want a son, I want a son, I want a son. You know, you get in trouble by asking for something too much. Just like the story of Draupadi in her past life. Everybody knows that story? Draupadi, before she became Draupadi, and had 5 husbands. Also, don't try that. In her previous life, she couldn't get a husband. You know, it wasn't her karma, whatever. And she thought, well, let me go to Lord Shiva. You know, Lord Shiva grants benedictions. He's Ashutosh. He's easily pleased, easily angered. So she goes to Lord Shiva, my dear Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva appears. Lord Shiva appears. And he says, what do you want, my dear devotee? And she says, I want a husband. Ooh, I want a husband. 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 And he says, okay. 6 requests, 6 husbands. And he says, that's not what she says, that's not, I'm 5, sorry, not 6. 5. Yeah, I got 1 more. 5 more. 5. So, yeah, I said 6 times. But anyway, so I want a husband 5 times, and he says, you get 5 of them. And she says, that's not what I meant. He says, that's all right. You ask 5 times. That's what you get. And so eventually in the next life, she gets 5 husbands. So be careful what you ask for, or at least make sure you look at the fine print in the contract when you ask for something. So anyway, so continuing with Chitraketu. So Chitraketu, he just didn't accept the sage's instruction. And the sage said, all right, I'll benedict you. You can have a child. But his name will be Harsha Shoka, which means, happiness and lamentation. So Chitraketu was so much in my, he thought, happiness, lamentation. Everybody's like that. You can't have children who don't give you some lamentation sometimes. Just like when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I gave my parents a tremendous amount of lamentation. Isn't it? How could my son do that to me? After all I've done. So 50 years of lamentation. And in this way, they were Krishna conscious, thinking of me for 50 years until they passed away. So anyway, so Chitraketu is blessed like this. And he has his favorite wife, whose name is Krita Juti. And Krita Juti gives birth to a little baby boy. And he's really cute. And Chitraketu is so happy that he's going around, chanting the Maha Mantra, whatever. And he doesn't pay any attention to any of his other wives. Because Chitraketu is the one who gave birth to this nice little boy. And so all the other wives, are they happy with this? No. They are envious. So what happens is they make a plan to poison the little kid. They give him poison. Kid dies, and they're all crying, including the wives who poisoned the little kid, because they're making believe. And so the whole palace is filled with 10 million ladies crying. Oh my God. I wouldn't want to visit that palace. It's intense. Even one little baby crying drives me crazy. Isn't it? Sometimes I'm getting an airplane, and then the lady with the baby is sitting right next to me, and he cries through the whole trip, testing my Krishna consciousness. Vacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam. Which the statement is, one should control his tongue, belly, judgments, mind, anger, and words. So we're controlled in that way. So anyway, 10 million, wives crying. Chitraketu's even crying. Then who comes along but Narada Muni with Angira. And Narada Muni is actually meant to preach to people about renunciation. Usually he's not blessing people, to have certain material things. Usually he's not doing that. Even sometimes he curses people so they become more detached, like in the case Manigriva Nalakuvara, right? They were two, this is a story in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. They were two young men, the sons of Kuvera, and they were having a good time. Kuvera, of course, is the treasurer of the temple, not the demigods. And I guess he takes some of the money and slips it to his sons. So they became enamored, by their position, and they were just having a good time in the celestial, the heavenly Ganges. And they are having a good time with some girls. And they were doing things without their clothes. Just like one time I came to Finland, I think there was a section of the bay where people were naked or something like that. remember I'm walking on they said, don't go there. Because people don't have any clothes there. Do you know where that is?
There's someplace.
There's someplace. Thank God you don't know where it is. What? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember walking, just taking a nice japa walk. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you don't want to go there. I said, thank you for warning me. So anyway, they were bathing, completely naked, whatever they were doing, And Narada Muni comes along, and the boys are so intoxicated, they didn't cover themselves. The girl had more intelligence. They covered themselves. And the boys just like, hi, Narada. And Narada said, you're like trees, mode of ignorance. So therefore, you should become trees. You curse them to become trees. But that curse was for their blessing. Because eventually they became trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and Krishna knocked them down. And they saw Krishna and they became purified. So when the great sages curse, it's a blessing. So Narada Muni, he's really into renunciation. Remember that. He didn't come previously to bless Chitraketu to have a son. But he came when Chitraketu was ready to become renounced. Really into renunciation. There's another story in the Bhagavatam. Don't mess with Narada Muni. That don't let Narada Muni see your sons. So keep away. Keep me away from your son. Gadai.
Yeah.
So there's another story that a really interesting story in the Bhagavatam, where there were these sons of Daksha. Daksha, of course, is a great Prajapati. And Prajapati means someone who likes, the word Daksha means expert. So he's expert at having children. That was his field, his business. So he was given that business by Lord Brahma. It wasn't his fault. But he became materially attached. So Daksha, this expert in having children, decided to have a lot of children. Actually, 10,000 children. Oh my God. They were called the Haryashvas. He had 10,000 children at one time. Phew. These people were quite expert at doing things at that time. So he had 10,000 children. Okay, boys. And he thought, I want my children to also become good parents like me. Because, he wanted to enjoy what? Grandchildren. You know how it is, don't it? Grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And your whole life is just spent, when you get older, just visiting your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. And maybe sometimes you distribute books. That's Krishna conscious vanaprastha. Facetiously, I'm speaking. I'm jokingly. So he wanted his children to follow in the family business, which is having children. And he said, you should perform austerities to become good fathers. So they're performing austerities. Who comes along but Narada Muni and says, what the heck are you doing? They said, we're following the order of our father. And Narada Muni says, do you know who your real father is? No, Krishna, of course. And Guru Maharaj. So anyway, and then he convinces them, by telling them different metaphors and stories, he convinces them to renounce. Don't mess with Narada Muni. So they renounce everything, take sannyas. Their father is really upset, but he thinks, I can have more kids. So what happens is he decides only 1,000 this time. The Savalashvas, 1,000 kids. And guess what? Narada Muni plays his trick and does the same thing. And they also renounce. And Daksha, this expert father, is so upset that he curses Narada Muni And he says, Narada Muni, you shall never be able to stay in one place for very long. And Narada Muni says, Jai, Haribol. Because for a sannyasi, it's a benediction, because you never get attached. Like you stay in one place, after a while you think, oh, this is my bed, right? My table, my bed, my house, my. And that's the opposite of Krishna consciousness. Because if you really want to go back to Godhead, you have to understand what? Nothing is yours. Nirmana moha jitta sangha dosha vyatmanacha vinivrita kama dvandvar vimuktar sukha sangar kachancha mudam padam avyam tat, right? So that's, of course, I know that's heavy for all of you to think about. Oh no, why do we invite this sannyasi here? He's giving a sannyas class today. Anyway, so not really. You know, we like good grahasas, you know, who raise children. And as soon as their children grow up, they belong to us, the sannyasi. But they take care of the difficult part. You understand? Yeah. Raise your children, educate them. Okay, come in with us. Like Lord Nityananda, he was raised by his father Hridai Pandit, sannyasi, took him away. Madhvacharya, same thing. He took sannyas at 9. I don't think Gadai's ready for it. So, in any case, so Narada Muni gets cursed, and he likes that curse. Also, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got cursed, not for the same purpose, to be kicked out of his home. And also Prabhupada got cursed by the parents, similar situation, by the parents of his disciples. Prabhupada said that. He said, the parents of my disciples have cursed me to not be able to remain any place. So even though I have so many temples and palaces around the world, I can't stay in any of them. I have to keep traveling. And Prabhupada said he's transferring that curse to his disciples, like me. So, anyway, so getting back to the story. So, story within the story. So Narada Muni gets cursed. And Daksha decides, well, no more sons for me, because they're all going to get ruined by this Narada Muni character. And so then he decides to have daughters, and it's a different story. So, getting back to the story of Chitraketu. So Chitraketu has the dead son, Narada Muni comes, and Narada Muni preaches him in a very interesting way. Narada Muni has very interesting ways of preaching. He doesn't always give people the sauce. You know the sauce? You're in Maya. That's the sauce. This is what we call the sauce. You ever heard of that before? The sauce. You're in Maya. Wake up. You're an illusion. Don't lament. So instead, he has this wonderful experience he gives Chitraketu. He brings the sun back to life, and this is what we're reading right now. And the sun starts preaching. So no one can get angry with Narada Muni. Because he uses a different technique. This is the expertise of a preacher. Not that you can do that. You can't bring someone back to life. But the expertise to know how to present something to someone, the Krishna conscious philosophy to someone, so that they won't get offended or won't get upset. This, of course, is in relationship to the offense on chanting, which we talked about yesterday, preaching the glories of the Lord to those who are faithless. So before we explain Krishna consciousness to someone, we should understand who we're speaking to, how much they can take, and then present it in such a way that they can easily digest it. So what Narada Muni does, brings the kid back to life, and the kid starts preaching. And then the kid, as we're going to hear here, he dies again and goes on to his next life. Interesting preaching. Similar thing happened in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was having his kirtan in the house of Srivastaka or Shivasanga. While they were having the kirtan, Srivastakur's son passed away. And when he passed away, Srivastakur's wife, Malini, she was crying. And Srivastakur said, why are you crying? And she said, your son passed away. And he said, you want to disturb Lord Chaitanya's kirtan? See how detached he was? Oh my God. If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. It's a tough person, And she just held her tears back. Then after the kirtan was over, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, something happened here. And Srivastakur said, just something minor. And he said, just my son passed away. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, why didn't you stop the kirtan? And Srivastakur said, I didn't want to disturb your ecstasy. So anyway, so they went to the room where the son's body was. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touches his body and says, why did you leave Srivastakur? And then the son sits up again, starts preaching. He basically says, so many lifetimes I've passed, but I passed away during the kirtan. So let me go back to Godhead. Don't keep me here. That's funny. Let me go back to Godhead. So, anyway, it's a similar story. Actually, so many related stories of how one king was brought back to life. You know the story? And the king said, I don't want to be brought back to life. It's the story of King Nimi. King Nimi was very interesting. He got cursed by his guru. He got an angry guru. I don't get angry. He got angry. So his guru was Vashishta Muni. And Vashishta Muni said to King Nimi that, can you wait to do a sacrifice? Because I have another sacrifice planned with the demigods. And so when you spend time with the demigods, a few moments with the demigods, that's like a lot of time on the earth planet, comparative time sequences. And so King Nimi was thinking, I'm not going to wait till Guru Maharaj comes back. I'm going to do the Harinam Kirtan. Like you all do Harinam Kirtan here. So I'm going to do Harinam Kirtan, and Guru will be all right. So the Guru comes back, and he finds his disciple has done the Harinam without him. Namaruchi. So anyway, and the Guru gets very angry. The Guru says, because you did the sacrifice without me, I curse you to become near Deha, without a body. And the disciple, King Nimi, gives him some Guru Dakshin at that point. He says, I also curse you. That's his donation to the Guru. I curse you to become near Deha, Gurudev. You should die too. Nice reciprocation between Guru and disciple, isn't it? Tadvidi, pranipatena, pranipasena, sevaya. So, anyway, nice. So the Guru dies, but he later comes back in a different way, through an interesting way through Mitra and Varuna. And the disciple dies, and the sages put his body, King Nimi's body, in a vat of oil to preserve it till the end of the sacrifice, so they can properly do the Antyeshti ceremony, the funeral ceremony. So at the end of the ceremony, demigods come down, and they say to the sages, what do you want? Ask for something, and we'll grant it. And they said, we want King Nimi to come back to life. And the demigods say, no problem, we can do this. So King Nimi sits up out of the vat of oil, and he says, I don't want to come back to life. I want to go back to home, back to God. Interesting story, isn't it? So anyway, so you have these particular occasions where people are brought back to life. So getting back to the story of Chitraketu, the son preaches. Chitraketu understands exactly what the philosophy is, has realization through direct experience, pratyaksha bhagavan dharma, shushukam kartamavya. And guess what? Then he goes on Sankirtan. It's a Sankirtan story. And he dedicates his life to chanting the holy name. Of course, he has little problems later on in Sankirtan, but that's a different part of the story that we won't tell today. So, any questions or comments? Questions or comments about anything I mentioned? Class? Yeah.
I just had a thought. Thank you for the class.
Yeah.
But it's thought because this language is sometimes so interesting, like you said. Harsha Shoka,
Yeah.
a material happiness see as on the path of the world as actually not like giving misery, as we know, it gives misery, the material. So there is this harsha happiness.
I like to be happy. Yeah,
So
harsh.
in English there is harsh.
Harsh.
Yeah.
But it means something good in Sanskrit. But let me make a little adjustment to that. Prabhupada said we should be happy in devotional service. Yeah, so we take the happiness. Yeah, sometimes, but we take the happiness and distress as stepping stones to help us become Krishna conscious. You know, we're not like Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti prayed for more distress. So, Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru says she'd become more detached from this world. But Prabhupada instructed us, when a devotee asked him, should we pray like Queen Kunti for more distress? Prabhupada said, no. We shouldn't pray for more distress. We should pray to take shelter of Krishna. And happiness comes. Sitoshna Sukadukada Agam Mahapainam Nijastam Satikshasha Bharata. Isn't it? Matra Sparshas. That's one of the first lessons. That whether we have happiness or distress, we tolerate Tam Satikshasha Bharata. Matra Sparshas. Happiness, distress, summer and winter, cold, rain, whatever. One tolerates these things. And actually, the first lesson taught by Lord Kapiladeva in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is Titikshava, tolerate. But tolerate, why? Titikshava Korunika, to be merciful to others. So our method of Krishna becoming Krishna conscious is not exactly the same as Queen Kunti had. Our method of becoming Krishna conscious is Tatikshava Karunika, being merciful to others and sharing Krishna consciousness with others through the process of Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan. That means Krishna Katha, Prasadam distribution, and of course, chanting, public chanting, and in general, bringing people to Krishna consciousness. So, I do not pray for distress. In fact, I pray that Krishna won't give me distress. I have to be honest. I mean, about 3 or 4 years ago, I had kidney stones. If anyone's ever had kidney stones, they know that they're very painful. So basically, all I could do was chant Krishna's name. Not even the whole Maha Mantra. It was just like, Krishna, 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 Krishna for several days. I became purified. Anyways, oh my God, don't ask for it. But the whole time I was saying, Krishna, take it away already. Take it away enough. Uncle, as someone, sometimes, the kids, they play with each other and say uncle, say, I surrender. Okay, Krishna, I surrender. Take away the pain. Enough is enough. I will chant nicely. I will behave myself. So, anyway, I like happiness better. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But whatever Krishna sends is for, yeah, the point you're making is good. Because whatever Krishna sends is what's meant to happen or what we're meant to experience. So, as Krishna says in the Gita, 6:30 in the Gita, one should see Yomam Pashati Sarvatra Savam Chamai Pashati Tasham Na Pranashati Sachame Na Pranashati. One should see Krishna in everything and everywhere. So when something happens to us, happiness or distress, it's Krishna putting us in that circumstance. And then we have to think, why did Krishna put us in this circumstance? What is the purpose? And how does Krishna want us to act in response to that circumstance? Yeah.
Yeah, you said that our method is not to suffer, but it's to help others to
Yeah.
live different. So why is in our method, why is it that this compassion to others is so important in our movement? What is the root of that? Empathy and such.
Why? Because first of all, Krishna is more pleased if we serve his children, and everyone's Krishna's child, just like an ordinary man, especially the good children, devotees. An ordinary man is very pleased. Like if I go up to Gadai there and I say, "What a nice son! He's the best kid I've ever met." Then Acharya will say, "Well, what a good guru he is." And Anuradha will say, "Oh, we picked the right guy." But if I go up to someone and say, "He's ugly," that means got to find a new guru. So no, but he's nice looking. He's very nice. But so because everyone is Krishna's part and parcel, and Krishna's main desire or anxiety, let's say anxiety is, what's Krishna's anxiety? That his part and parcel, that his children, sons and daughters, are here in this world and they're not with him. He's in anxiety. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's that story of Gopakumar. And Krishna actually states in that story that I was in anxiety basically, wondering when you were going to come back to me. This is Gopakumar who came to Krishna in the spiritual world, finally realizing his spiritual identity, Krishna embracing him, Krishna fainting when he finally came back. Krishna himself was so happy that what? He fainted. And everyone thought that Krishna had some disease or been poisoned or something like that by Gopakumar. But Krishna fainted because he was so happy. And Krishna reveals, I was wondering when you were going to come back to me. And I was making plans. And I decided, even though you didn't want to come back to me, I would violate my own rules and become your guru. Interesting, isn't it? So, Prabhupada elsewhere comments, because Prabhupada didn't translate the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that was translated by Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. Prabhupada elsewhere comments that Krishna is in anxiety, and those who relieve his anxiety become most dear to him. That's one reason why sharing Krishna consciousness is so important, because it's the most pleasing activity. Krishna says, and the Gita also, one who teaches this Bhagavad Gita to his devotees, but I think everybody's his devotee, as I mentioned yesterday afternoon, that night, that everyone has Krishna praying, it's just that we've forgotten it, so everyone is Krishna's devotee. So Krishna says one who teaches this Bhagavad Gita to his devotees is most dear to him, and there will never be one more dear to him than he or she who teaches this Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Amazing. So that's one reason. Another reason why compassion is so important is that yastu sarvani bhutani atmana evanu pashati sarvabhuteshu chatvaram tato navayumshate, is that we're all brothers and sisters. We're all connected. We're all the same family, right? when you see that we're basically connected like that, it's so important to be approaching those, which means everybody you're connected to in a family relationship, isn't it? A spiritual family relationship. Everyone is part of our spiritual family in a larger context, a larger thing. So, does that explain why it's so important?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the most important activity. I mean, first of all, you got to have the foundation of chanting Hare Krishna. You have to have the foundation following the rules and regulations of having good sadhana. But apart from that, that's the foundation. Apart from that, one should dedicate their life for the welfare of others. And that's the most pleasing thing, isn't it? So, other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I have a 7-year-old niece,
That's nice.
and every time I see her, I get into 2 different mindsets. The Jnani detached side is, okay, I'm so attached to this person because it has a relation to my body.
Uh-huh.
And then the other side is like, oh wow, she's so nice, she's the best. I love her so much. And so I was just wondering, what's the best way to deal with these 2 types of mindsets?
I think the attachment can be transformed, which is interesting. Because when we try to give up our attachment to different things, we become more attached. Because we're thinking about the thing we want to become detached from more than we were thinking about before. It's interesting. Just like, I often see sometimes brahmacharis, they think, well, they should think, but they talk more about becoming detached from ladies than householders talk about. Or they talk more about ladies, about Maya. As soon as you designate someone as a Maya Devi, so many Maya Devis in this room. Sorry. Then you actually think of the person in those terms and you become more attached. Anyway, I think you understand what I'm talking about. So instead, if there is some attachment there, then you transform that attachment into something spiritual by thinking of the spiritual welfare of that particular individual. What is the best thing, that Krishna conscious wise, even materially, for that particular niche you were talking about? How to help them become Krishna conscious. And by doing that, then you have the right consciousness. We're not talking about, in Krishna conscious, we don't advocate like absolute detachment like the Mayavadis have. That sort of detachment is the opposite side of the coin of attachment. So instead, we should be thinking, how can I transform my attachment and think of helping that particular individual, that girls, how to become Krishna conscious. And that should be done in every relationship that we have. Instead of thinking yourself or seeing seeing yourself as the enjoyer of that relationship, see yourself as a servant of that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That Krishna sent you this particular relationship, and Krishna wants you to help in that way. Yeah, Jayananda.
Yes, Gurudev, is there a way to transform the opposite, like in Chitraketu's story? There was intense malice towards the one lady who got pregnant from the others.
Yeah, they became transformed. They actually became compassionate when they heard the child preaching.
I meant like deliberately if I notice in myself like.
Oh, if you have some envy.
Yeah.
The way that I would deal with it, it would be to understand that, again, that is Upanishad verse. Ishavashamidam Sarvam, you know the verse. That everybody has his quota. Krishna, it's come from Krishna. Krishna, let's say you, of course, let's say you were a lady and one of the wives of Chishiketu didn't have the kid. That's her quota. Understand it from a Krishna conscious perspective. That person is supposed to have that particular opulence or child or whatever. And that's how I would look at it. You know, just like that's how we should look at it, to see different, some devotees may chant better than us, or speak better than us, or whatever, do more yoga postures than us. But that's not hard with me. So, just like we have my disciple Gokul Chandra, who does so many yoga postures, he broke the database. Database. Anyway, I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm sitting there, oh my God, why isn't Krishna giving that to me? I'm envious. No, I'm not envious. But I'm appreciative how Krishna has empowered him in that particular way. That's his quota. And I have my quota. And you have your quota. That's all. And the interesting thing about your quota, Krishna will take it away anyway, even if it is your quota. Isn't it? And if you get too attached to it, Krishna says, Yashaham anugrinami harishket tajanam shanai. I'm going to take it away sooner. But sooner or later, right? Time factor. Kalo asmi. Sooner or later, everything's taken away. You may be the richest man in the world. Who is that? I don't mention his name. I don't want to hear it. And one day, he's going to leave the world naked like everybody else. So it's all these opulences that Krishna may have, wealth, strength, fame, whatever, are all just lent by Krishna. Isn't it? There was one famous person years ago. He was a radio personality. He says, intelligence on loan from God. So try to understand that. God is loaning you something. God is loaning me something. But everything is Krishna's. Ham sarvasya prabhu matak sarva pravartate. That's the way I would look at it. That's the way that's a Krishna conscious perspective. That's what Krishna wants you to have a son. That's fine. All right? I mean, it's interesting. It's a funny story, and then we'll take your question. Once upon a time, Prabhupada told the story of Shakshi Gopal. Shakshi Gopal is a deity that walked all the way across India to witness a marriage promise because this younger Brahmin, who Prabhupada said was a pure devotee, begged the deity to walk across India so he could get married to the girl he wanted to marry. I'm not going to tell the whole story. I'm just taking it in very short form. And so Prabhupada was telling this story. A nice story. Deity walks all the way across India, witnesses a marriage promise that an older Brahmin made to a younger Brahmin. So one sannyasi was sitting there, and he said to Prabhupada, if this younger Brahmin was such a pure devotee, why did he want to get married? Said it very, but he was joking. As one of my God friends. He said, why do you want to get married? He was a pure devotee. Why don't you just chant Hare Krishna and be happy? Prabhupada looked at him and he said, because no one would have you. In other words, it wasn't your quota. You're speaking like that. So, I mean, it's a funny story, but it indicates that everybody has their own quota. And we respect it. One person's meant to be rich, another person's meant to be poor. One person's meant to be strong, the person's meant to be weak. And whatever it is, it's the best thing for you. Because it's Krishna's arrangement. See Krishna everywhere, see Krishna in everything. And understand that is the best possible situation. And make the best use of it in Krishna consciousness. However, don't blame Krishna for your foolishness. Because if you do something stupid, I mean, I'll tell you something stupid I did. I like to talk about my own faults. So, about 3 years ago, I got a new car. And I thought, let me enjoy. It's done. And they'll blame Krishna for this. So I went on the road, and I thought, wow, see how fast I can go. Put my pedal to the metal. You know what that means, pedal to the metal? Means a gas pedal all the way down. I still drive. And I think, this is cool. And then I saw some red lights behind me. Krishna's mercy. No. It was my foolishness. So I can't say, Krishna arranged all this for my purification. No, I am stupid and I made a mistake. So in certain circumstances where you have control of your situation, don't blame it on Krishna. Don't think that Krishna's made the arrangement. Sometimes you do it. It's your fault. So, yeah, that's the sort of your question.
Thank you, Gurudev, for your lecture. I had some follow-up question to this topic of envy, because this story of Chitraketu's wives illustrates that this envy is like there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So they went on to poison the child. That's like a terrible deed to do.
Right.
So if one is kind of grasped by envy, there's a lot of energy that is supposed to go somewhere. So in such a situation, it might not help to read Ishopanishad, but one should kind of find out where to put that energy, like in Krishna conscious way.
Well, first play a game of soccer or something like that. Football. Work it out.
Digging holes.
Yeah. I would say if there's a lot of pent-up energy, then do something, like get a punching bag or something like that. I mean, there's physiological ways to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that the modern life is getting more like mental.
Yeah, it's more mental,
Not really doing so much, so...
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there has to be some physical. But usually, we should be able to catch it before it gets to that point of energy. There's different stages. One time I was studying about, anger in family life. Why? Because, I counsel people. So sometimes there's, anger, yelling, screaming, and other things that happen. And it's like a curve that goes up. In the beginning, you catch it in the beginning before it goes up. Understanding that, that can be done mentally, that understanding or psychologically, understanding this is not an appropriate thought. But envy builds up it's a type of, again, Krishna in the Gita says, Jayato Vishak Punsam Sangos Tesha Pajayate. When you contemplate something more and more, he has this or she has that, and then you think about it, you obsess on it, then the energy builds up, and then you have to do something about it.
And the envy is also a nature that you kind of avoid confronting it. You're like lying to yourself, like I'm not envious, but actually I am.
Yeah, be honest with yourself. That's a very good point. Self-honesty is very difficult. to admit one's own faults, even to oneself, what to speak of to others. It's very, very difficult. So yeah, I am experiencing this emotion, which we term envy. And basically to try to understand, I mean, if you really want to go deeper, you can use what I teach in empathic communication, which is try to understand that which need of mine is unfulfilled, and then connect that particular feeling to an unfulfilled need. But that's a little complicated subject matter for class. But yes, if one has a lot of energy, go out there and do something physical, because it's going to be destructive to the body and the mind. So, any other questions? Comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru.
Hare Krishna.
You were telling us a story about Maharaj Chitraketu and how he had this karma that he couldn't have a son.
Yeah.
But it was meant like that. So the same way, the question is, how do we know what of the things that we were given we should tolerate, and what do we know that we should change?
All right. Yeah, obviously we should make some endeavor, but there's this principle, prayasas. Anyone know that verse? Achahara prayasas cha pajatam niyamangraha janasanga shola. You know that verse? There's a question of over endeavoring. So let's say Chitraketu, in that particular example, he had a wife, no child. Okay, he's a king, he can marry more than one wife. You know, in those days they're allowed. 2, 3, okay. Yeah, maybe Krishna doesn't want him to have a wife after 3. You understand? So you don't want to over endeavor. You make an endeavor for something. Let's say you want to make, let's take Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada had this idea before he came to the West, when he had his business, to do his business to make money so he could print books and carry out his spiritual master's order. Actually, everything Prabhupada did was to carry out the order of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even in household life. Everything Prabhupada did. So he was thinking, business will enable me to do that. So he tries, and it's unsuccessful. Gives it up. No over endeavor, no going crazy. You understand? Also, he tried with his wife to have her become Krishna conscious. He tried, and she sold his Bhagavatams for tea biscuits. She interfered with his preaching. She told him she would rather have tea than him. Can you imagine that? I said, yeah, I'd rather have tea than you. And he tries, and he tries, and he tries, and he tries. And you realize after a while, where does that song go? Can't get no satisfaction. Anyway, you ever heard that song? Can't get no satisfaction. I tried. So you try to do things. Even let's say one has some disease. You go to the doctor. You try to cure the disease. But after a while, you keep trying and trying. Well, maybe Krishna wants me to go back to Godhead at a certain point. Right? So that's the point of over endeavor. Yes, you should try. Unless Krishna comes down and says, I don't want you to do this. That is very rare. Very rare that Krishna will come down. I wouldn't rely so much on horoscopes. They tend to be wrong. Especially in the case of Krishna consciousness. When one takes up Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says the stars change, the lines on your palms change every time you chant and dance. That's the benefit of Harinam Ruchi Units. You got good lines on your palm. We have to check your lines later on. So anyway, so I wouldn't take it so seriously. I mean, I'll tell you one instance of astrology. I had one really good astrologer, probably knew everything about my life. He said, "You're going to die when you're 50 or 55." Okay. So I was getting ready. 1 year left. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Here's my will. I leave everything to Acharya. No. Go to the temple. So everything to the temple. I said, saying my last goodbyes to everybody. I'm exaggerating, of course. Goodbye, this is my last year, going to Govardhan. So 50, 51, 55. What happened? I'm disappointed. I'm still around. And I'm getting old. Oh my God. So, don't want that to happen. So anyway, who knows? And then, recently I went to another astrologer. He said, "You're going to live to 120. I said, oh my God, I don't want that either. Can you imagine, someone carrying me around in a basket? Like anyway, it's interesting. Sometimes the mothers carry their child like in a pouch in the front. So they'll have to carry me like that too. Where's the attachment guruing instead of attachment parenting? Anyway, so I'll be in Acharya's lap like that. So basically, I don't place much stock in astrology. We may consult, and consulting with other Vaishnavas is actually very good too. Do you think this would be a good thing for me? And also understanding what is psychophysical nature. That's part of Varnashram. Am I a Brahmin? Am I a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra? So, there are some common sense things you can do to understand. But sometimes Krishna just doesn't want you to do something. And then sometimes Krishna will just shower you with things like Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said his father told him that Krishna has 10 hands and 10 arms. And if he wants to give you something, you can't stop yourself from getting it. And if he wants to take things away, you can't keep him from taking anything away. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, so I think it's time to end. Thank you very much. All glory is to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami